Hey, you guys, it's Mo in the Deep End. I've got a Newsy nugget for you and maybe a little bit of a snark back at well, the only federal agent I am loosely tangentially know, sort of, Caffy Daffy. Now, I know you're not a fan of collectively labeling people in groups and, collectively punishing everyone, but according to this article and you being a former Fed, I could honestly assume that you don't know your forehead from your behind. That being said, I don't do that. So how about you kindly tell whoever's on your channel and conducting live streams for you not to come after my friends without knowing them. He simply asked a question and your host called him a Yahtzee. Valhalla served our country with honor, integrity, and he is still the kindest guy, and he has goats. So, unless you take time to know people, don't let your host call them Yahtzees. Any hoozle, let's see how the feds screwed up this time. I mean, allegedly in Minecraft, except this is from Congress, although then you have to trust Congress. So, it swings in roundabouts. It's half a dozen of one, six of the other. And I'm more of a Lewis Black, Republicans suck and Democrats blow. And, well, I mean, until I'm Empress of the Pettyverse, I can do nothing to help you guys. Let's get into the article. This is going to be a bit more political than I normally do, but I think it has really cool parallels, or at least cool, maybe heartbreaking, tragic parallels to the fact that an investigation done poorly, facts withheld, narrative shaded, means justice is delayed, or families will never know the answers or the truth. And that I find a true dereliction of justice and duty. The FBI caused six families to not know for years why they were gunned down. So I'm sorry, but this has many parallels with the Karen Reed case, with the Delphi case, with I'm not up to date on the Koberger case, so I don't know how that investigation went, but those are some of the ones that I can think. The Zachariah Anderson case. So let's get into this and I'll stop babbling. How about that one? That'd be a miracle. So the FBI botched its investigation of the 2017 Congressional Baseball Shooting, downplaying the gunman's anti-GOP motives despite having handwritten evidence. Gosh, the disappearing manifesto. Have we seen that before? Hmm. Do we know why Las Vegas happened? Could we possibly get on that? It's only been a couple, years. I'm sure you're working on finding the paperwork. A blistering House report has found the House Judiciary Committee, Intelligence Committee, and Intelligence Subcommittee on the Oversight and Investigation received, released a scathing unclassified report on its findings Tuesday after combing through roughly 3,000 case documents that was given last month on the attack that wounded six, including current House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, a Republican from Louisiana. Now, that led to the death of the gunman, James T. Hodgkinson. Quote, this is the same FBI who can't tell us who planted a pipe explosive on January 6, 2021, who can't tell us who leaked the Dobbs decision, and who can't tell us who put cocaine in the White House. House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan, a Republican from Ohio, chided Tuesday morning. We shouldn't be surprised that they reached the wrong conclusion. They knew what the facts were. Shortly after Hodgkinson's June 14th, 2007 attack on a Republican practice session for the Congressional Baseball game in suburban Alexandria, Virginia, the FBI wrote up an executive intelligence briefing that concluded that he had wanted his motive was to die by police officer. That was the baseline motive. That is how they investigated it. That is where, if you believe Yuri, the scene spoke to him and he could paint with all the colors of true crime. He could hold the knife and still he would unroll death until you could. It's a work in progress. Pocahontas, the crime scene investigator, is on the way. It's the musical. Will do great. That being said, 4 years later in 2021, 180. Whoopsie, we made a little boo-boo. We might have misspoke. The FBI abruptly changed its determination without any new evidence, according to Tuesday's report, to conclude that Hodgkin's attack was actually motivated by domestic violence extremism more to the leftward slant. Now, I believe extremism can find a home in most anywhere except maybe like the Hare Krishna, but I'm not too learned in the Hare Krishna to know if they've ever had a violent sect. The FBI then spent the next 4 years privately guarding the basis for determinations by impeding congressional oversight, the report assessed. It's not until the FBI was investigating January 6th protesters and the application of congressional pressure that the FBI changed course. The FBI used false statements, manipulation of known facts. Where have we heard this before? And biased and butchered analysis to support a narrative that Hodgkinson had committed unaliving by police officer without any nexus to domestic terrorism. But congressional investigators have since found evidence that the Bureau concealed information from the public that would have determined its initial, suicide by S by cop was, not the actual issue. Now, they then suppressed that evidence, and it included key details about handwritten notes found on Hodgkinson that listed several Republicans as potential targets. Now, at that time, the FBI said it found a sheet of paper that had the names of 6 members of Congress, but did not elaborate. Now, GOP lawmakers argued that the case file made it clear that the attack was, quote, premeditated unaliving attempt on Republican congressman by a radical left-wing political extremist who was seeking to affect the conduct of our government. The guy had a hit list in his pocket, Jordan said. Former FBI Director James Comey, former FBI Director Andrew McCabe. McCabe's just don't seem to be rolling 20s here lately. Former FBI Director Christopher Wray, they all knew it was domestic T word, but it didn't fit their narrative. The report identified 3 major failures by the FBI, neglecting to interview key shooting victims and witnesses. Where have I heard this before? Let me think on it. Failure to establish a comprehensive timeline of events and improperly classifying parts of the case on its file of the rampage. One of the witnesses that the Congressional Review faulted the Bureau for failing to interview was the then Representative Mo Brooks, a Republican from Atlanta, who was both present for the shooting on Hodgkin's takeout list, even fashioning a tourniquet out of his belt to help stop Scalise's bleeding after the Louisianan took a bullet to the hip. U.S. Capitol Police later awarded Brooks a Medal of Merit for his bravery in the face of an active shooter. However, the FBI did not interview Brooks or include him on its secondary victim list. To defend its assessment that Hodgkin intended to take himself out by police via, police, the FBI pointed to 2 goodbye letters that he sent in the mail and the fact that he gave away some of his possessions with notes to the effect of, "You might not see me again." No, that just means he knew what he was doing and he probably wasn't going to come back. Not that, he totally didn't, have everything going on for him. That being said, Caffy Daffy, I'd like you to come to the front of the congregation because I'm gonna need you to explain this because I thought you were the best of the best of the best. I mean, you were like G.I. Jane over there. Anywho, lawmakers faulted the Bureau for not considering context that helped differentiate between Hodgkin being a T word or, if he was just had a big case of the "I would like to leave this mortal coil." They also pointed to the actions that he took that might indicate that he hoped he would survive the firefight, such as searching for directions from Alexandria, Virginia, to his home in Belleville, Illinois, and texting his wife that he was returning home the night before the shooting. Lawmakers also noted that witnesses saw Hodgkin hiding behind a storage building while firing, another indicator that he was not planning to go out in a blaze of glory. Regardless of whether Hodgkin intended to die that day, self deletion is not mutually exclusive with, being a T word of the domestic style. As it's been publicly reported not long after the attack, Hodgkins harbored a deep animus against Republicans. He was a member of a Facebook group named, quote, Terminate the Republican Party, end quote, members of which praised him after the attack. I was getting older and I wanted to make a statement in my life before the end, the unalived, gunman wrote in one note. A man realizes the political scene has changed drastically over the last 35 years and wants to show people how to win back the power of the people, he wrote somewhere else. The Post reached out to the FBI for comment. Now, Scalise, 59, praised congressional investigators and FBI Director Kash Patel for making the report possible. Quote, this report definitively shows that the FBI completely mishandled the investigation into congressional baseball shooting of 2017, ignoring crucial and obvious facts in order to sell a false narrative that the shooting was not politically motivated, the majority leader said in a statement. I would like to thank our FBI Director Kash Patel, Chairman Rick Crawford, and the staff of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence for finally getting the truth of this matter. This was deliberate and a planned act of domestic T word toward Republican Congress members. In conclusion, the report called for the FBI to investigate how it initially arrived at the self deletion by cop conclusion during its assessment of the 2017 congressional baseball game shooting. Lawmakers have also advised Congress to mold legislation that would lay out criminal liability for instances of intelligence analyses being politicized. Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee concurred with most of the report's findings about the FBI's failures, but argued that their Republican counterparts failed to provide evidence that political considerations led to the Bureau's initial conclusions, as opposed the recommendation for criminal liability against politicization of intelligence assessments. Now, this year's congressional baseball game is slated to take place on June 11th. Well, there you go. That one's just for you, Caffey Daffy. But here's the thing, Caffey. I judge you on your actions. I think it was goofy as all Hades to go to the Alberts home and try to do a sneaky little like looky-loo when they have a ring camera. And as a situationally aware former FBI agent, you should know that. But instead, it was kind of a funny picture. That being said, I am a deeply unserious person. I wear wigs. I make puppets. I like not serious. The only thing I don't like is when you go after my friends. That's when I get a little bit irritated. I get a little bit upset. And you've already been on my back foot, ma'am, because you are the one that found the homecoming pictures for Maya Kowalski. And as a fellow person who has CRPS, let me tell you that we fight like hell for those normal days. And that young girl, looking at that picture, I could tell she was in pain because it's the same way I sit when I'm pretending everything's okay because I just want to have a moment, just one or two, once in a while, where I feel normal. So I don't know, but this one's just a little, hey, back off, because unless you got, like all the best investigations going, don't judge people unless you want to be judged by the FBI standards. And well, apparently they're a bit subpar here lately. Any hoozle, that's all. I love you guys. Remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, but have a sassy mouth and carry a can of bitch fire. And, if someone goes after your friends, you stand up and you speak out. Because it's hard for me to speak out for myself, but you say something about my friends or family, I'm going to bring my mom and them into this conversation. Bye, you guys.